Imagine this. You're halfway through a Conjuring movie marathon, the lights are off, popcorn in hand, you're relaxed on the couch, when you suddenly realize you've watched them completely out of order. Valak shows up before Annabelle's even possessed, and you're left wondering if you accidentally opened a portal to hell or you messed up the timeline, you just don't know. Don't worry, I've got you. Today we're walking through the correct way to watch the entire Conjuring universe, in story order when the cases happened, not just release order. And I'm not just giving you the watch list. Later on in this, I'm going to be giving you some insight to the real cases and actual people and the disturbing truths behind this fiction, including the fact that the real-life doll that inspired Annabelle, who is currently on a cross-country road trip, may or may not be burning down museums and killing innocent people. Let's get into it. The Nun, made in 2018, set in 1952. We start in Romania because where else would a demon nun live, right? The Nun gives us the origin of Valak, one of the most terrifying demons in the entire Conjuring franchise. Though, let's be clear, the real Valak from ancient grimoires is a cherub-faced child riding a dragon. Creepy, but not hunting the Warrens for decades creepy. That part was completely made up by Hollywood. But still, this introduces us to the big bad in the Conjuring universe, and it shows us that demonic forces don't just lurk, they hunt, especially innocent people or people you view as untouchable, like nuns. Next up, Annabelle Creation, made in 2017, set in 1955. This is where Annabelle's story begins. A grieving toy maker, a possessed orphan, and one very cursed doll. Now, let's pause for a second because the real Annabelle, she's not porcelain. She's not cracked, she's not 3 feet tall with soulless eyes. She is quite literally a Raggedy Ann doll. Yep, the same one you might have hugged and slept with as a kid. But according to the Warrens, the doll wasn't innocent. It moved on its own, left handwritten notes, and once tried to strangle a guy in his sleep. That's pretty creepy, but Hollywood cranked the fear factor up to 11. And honestly, thank God it did, because real or not, the movie version looks like it crawled out of Satan's gift shop. Next up, The Nun II, made in 2023, but set in 1956. Back with Sister Irene, still battling Valak. And somehow things have gotten worse. Frenchie's dark fate ties directly into The Conjuring later, and if you think you know where this is going, you probably don't. This is where the universe really tightens its web, pulling threads from demonic lore and pushing them right into the Warrens' eventual path. If you're watching in order, this sets up the majority of the rest of The Conjuring. Up next is Annabelle, made in 2014, but set in 1967. A satanic cult breaks into a young couple's home, blood is spilled, and Annabelle ends up cursed harder than a Disney Channel child star. I'm looking at you, anybody but the Sprouse twins. Father Perez shows up here, the same priest who later connects this film to La Llorona, but we're still a few years away from the Warrens getting directly involved in this case. Then, there's the original Conjuring film, The Conjuring, made in 2013, set in 1971. This is the movie that started it all. Ed Lorraine Warren arrive at the Perron family's home in Rhode Island, where they uncover centuries-old hauntings, which involves an alleged witch named Bathsheba Sherman. The real Perron family did live through something terrifying, and Lorraine herself said this was one of the most intense hauntings she ever investigated. However, there were no floating chairs or clap games in real life, but there were nights the family claimed they could feel evil watching them in their sleep. I'm looking at you, Sam and Colby. Your videos here are some of my favorites. Then there's Annabelle Comes Home, made in 2019, but set in 1972. Annabelle is finally locked away in the Warrens' artifact room, which, let's be honest, it looks like a Goodwill that got cursed by a warlock. Very Needful Things vibes in here. But a nosy teen unlocks the case. Classic movie trope. Chaos breaks loose, and we get rapid-fire showcases of cursed objects. many of which are nods to real artifacts that the Warrens are claimed to own. Now, if we ever get a sequel in Greg and Dana Newkirk's museum, I'm all in. Next up is the Curse of La Llorona, made in 2019 and set in 1973. Not exactly central to the plotline, you can skip this, but it's part of the universe thanks to Father Perez. This one's based on the Latin American legend of the weeping woman said to drown her victims to replace her lost children. Not necessarily a Warren case, but definitely an evil spirit that wouldn't feel out of place in their basement or in the background of any other spooky shot from this series. Next up is my personal favorite, The Conjuring II, made in 2016, but set in 1977. Across the pond, the Warrens investigate the Enfield poltergeist, a real case involving an 11-year-old girl who was caught levitating in some of the most famous paranormal photographs ever taken. Valak returns here posing as a nun, a twisted man named Crooked, and a really bad house guest. In real life, the Warrens' involvement with this was debated, but the haunting itself was witnessed by multiple investigators who claim it was real. Then you have The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, made in 2021, but set in 1981, just a couple years later. A young man murders his landlord and claims demonic possession, and Ed Lorraine Warren back him up in court. This isn't just a movie plot, this really happened. Arnie Cheyenne Johnson became the first person in US history to use "The Devil Made Me Do It" as a legal defense. And while he served time, his story made headlines around the world. And it also opened the door to an even darker haunting. The next Conjuring movie, the last Conjuring movie that is going to come out, is The Conjuring: Last Rites, made in 2025 and set in the mid-1980s. The upcoming final film centers around the Smurl family haunting, one of the Warrens' most disturbing and controversial cases. Jack and Janet Smurl reported everything from shadow figures to full-on demonic assaults in their Pennsylvania home. Ed and Lorraine investigated and even brought in an exorcist, but the Catholic Church officially refused to recognize the case. The family later claimed the demon followed them after they moved. Critics called it a hoax, but others, they weren't so sure. In fact, The Haunted from 1991 was a made-for-TV movie about the case, and if Last Rites follows that trajectory, it will be one hell of a send-off for the entire series. Now, let's talk about real fear.
One of the doll's handlers found dead in his hotel room at the age of 54.
Annabelle's next stop, guys.
Earlier this year, the infamous Raggedy Ann Annabelle doll was scheduled to go on a summer tour. A cursed doll in a van driving across America. But on their tour, tragedy has struck. Unfortunately, some of the historic museums that this doll took a stop in burned down as if a demon made it happen. There have been deaths associated to Annabelle during this trip. One of the museum handlers died suddenly on this road trip, and it's all before the last movie comes out. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, that's a little too on the nose, don't you think? And with that dark ending, here's a recap on the watch order. So everything lines up as it happened in real life, allegedly. You'd start with The Nun, 1952. Annabelle Creation, 1955. The Nun II, 1956. Annabelle, 1967. The Conjuring, 1971. Annabelle Comes Home, 1972. The Curse of La Llorona, 1973. The Conjuring 2, 1977. The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It, 1981. And The Conjuring: Last Rites, which I believe is going to take place in 1986. You can watch these movies in release order But watching them in story order makes everything feel connected. You'll catch some small details, callbacks, and demon cameos to make the whole thing feel like its own spooky MCU. Just remember, these movies are fiction, but the people, the places, the legends, those were very, very real.